Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen. Today we're going to make a tortellini soup with a kind of a club type grilled cheese, and my husband's making me laugh. And we're going to make the dough for a cinnamon swirl bread because my son has been asking for that. So we're going to start by our dough on our cinnamon swirl spread. I'm taking a cup of warmed milk. I'm going to pour it in my bowl. And then we're going to sprinkle over 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast. And then we'll cover that with 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. And this is just going to allow my yeast to bloom and get active and ready to make a yummy cinnamon swirl bread. So we're going to I'm going to sprinkle 1/4 cup of granulated sugar over the top of my yeast that is sitting on top of my nice and warmed milk. There we go. And then I'm going to give it a quick stir, and we're just going to let it sit for a few minutes, and that will allow it to get foamy and active. So now we're going to work on our soup. I'm going to pour a little bit of extra virgin olive oil into my Dutch oven. It's about a tablespoon or so. I'm going to turn my heat on up to a medium high, and we're going to chop up 1 yellow onion. The skin came off on that. I'm going to start by chopping off the edges. Then I'll just make a quick slice and peel off this whole outer ring. It just makes chopping up the onion easier, and you don't have to waste time trying to peel off the brown skin. I'm going to cut it in half, and we're just going to do a small kind of dice on it. And do that. The way I do my dice is I'm going to cut it 5 times across, and then I'll turn it, and then just chop it about every, I want to say 1/4 of an inch or so. And we will toss the onions into the olive oil. We're going to saute them up. And then I'm going to add in some minced garlic. You could use fresh garlic if you wanted. I'm going to use about a teaspoon, so you would use about 1 to 2 cloves of fresh garlic if you wanted to. And then I'm going to give it a nice stir so that all of my onions and my garlic gets coated.
You got a question? What are you making?
We are going to make a tortellini soup, an Italian tortellini soup with a club-like grilled cheese. And then we started foaming the yeast for our, so we're going to make cinnamon swirl bread later tonight. My oldest son has been asking for it for a while, so we're starting the dough on that. Give this a nice stir. And now we're going to prep up the rest of our vegetables. We're going to be using sausage in here. So once my onions have started to get brown and translucent, I'm going to put in a 1/2 pound of sausage, and we'll saute that up. But for now, let's prep our vegetables. I'm going to peel my carrots. You could already use pre-washed baby carrots if you wanted. But again, I buy my vegetables in bulk at Costco, so we're going to peel them. You'll definitely, if you're using a full-size carrot, you want to peel it. That outer skin can get tough, and it just doesn't have as nice of a flavor, which is why we peel it. And for those of you guys who don't know, baby carrots that you buy from the store aren't actually baby carrots. They're full-size carrots that have just been shaved down into small, like baby-sized carrot pieces. It's a scam, I know.
Dana sent you an ice cream cone.
Oh, thank you. And we're going to chop off our ends right here. And then I'm going to cut my carrots in half the long way because I want them to be a little bit smaller when I chop them up. There. And then we'll do a quick chop on them. And we will then chop up some celery as well. I find when I'm making most of my soups or stews, carrots and onions tend to be in almost every single one of them, followed by, I would say, a close second would be celery. I think onions are just a foregone conclusion that they're going to be in it because they just have such a lovely flavor. And the same with carrots. I just seem to always have them, so I always have a bunch of bulk. It's one of my pantry staples. I feel like having carrots, onions, potatoes, always. You can make so many recipes with that. I'm hearing it saute, so I'm going to give it a good stir. I'm starting to get a little yellow color on this. I've got my carrots chopped up. And now I'm going to take some celery and chop up my celery. This is our, I guess, triple wash celery that you get in bulk from Costco. If you're using like the full celery stalk, you'll probably use about, I would say, 5 or so. But use the leaves as well. Chop those up because they actually add a lovely flavor to your broth as well. And look, I actually got one with a little bit of leaf on it. And I'm going to give these a nice dice up. And remember, I'm wanting to chop these up small enough because this is a soup. So think about what you're going to have on your soup spoon when you eat it. You don't want to have massive pieces on there. Otherwise, it'll become a little too cumbersome to eat. Give this a nice chop through. There we go. So we've got our celery chopped up, our carrots chopped up, and then we'll also be adding some zucchini, mushrooms, I had a look, and some tomatoes, which will add a nice acidity to our broth. Good stir. So I'm going to prep my zucchini. I always just take off the ends of it. And then I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to quarter it, and then slice them up. That way, they'll be nice bite-sized pieces. Zucchini, I think, is a lovely vegetable to kind of throw into your soups, or especially Italian-based ones. They kind of just absorb the whole flavor of what you're cooking. So I think it's nice, and I feel like it pairs really well with Italian soups. Nice. Like it would go well in a minestrone as well. So I've got our zucchini sliced up. Now that my onions are starting to get translucent, I'm gonna put in this is just a regular sausage. You could use Italian sausage. I'm gonna add a bit of Italian seasonings to it so it has that nice Italian flavor to it. But it was just left over from our sausage gravy we made over the weekend. So I'm gonna just smash it up with my spoon because I want it into nice bite-sized pieces. And now I have it smashed up right there, but I haven't stirred it. I'm gonna give it a nice sprinkling of, I'm gonna use dry Italian seasoning on it. This is Mrs. Dash's blend, Italian blend, but any Italian one works. And I'm gonna put about a teaspoon in there. And then I'm also gonna give it a little bit of garlic salt. And just that way our sausage is seasoned up. That's about a half a teaspoon. You don't need much because sausage is already fairly salty on its own. And now I'm gonna mash those spices up into my sausage and onion. And give it a nice stir. Using the oil is making the Italian spices really fragrant. I always say when you're making a stew, always try to heat your spices up in the oil. It will really let their flavors come out, and it will also allow them to mend or like mesh well with your broth instead of just rising to the top and resting on the top of your broth. There we go. Give it a good stir. And then we'll let those brown up. Perfect. And now I'm going to chop up, I have just about a handful of mushrooms. These are baby Bella. And I'm just going to slice them up. When I add my vegetables, I'm going to add my carrots and my celery first because they're a firmer vegetable. And then I'll add my mushrooms and zucchini and tomatoes towards the end of my sauteing. I always say start with the harder, the root vegetables, saute those for a little bit longer, and then you can add in your softer vegetables. If you do them at the same time, your firm ones will stay firm, but while your other ones will get soft. This allows them to kind of get to the nice texture that you want for both of them. So here is our baby Bella. We have up here. Beautiful. And then we used, I seasoned my meat with some of the dry Italian. I'm also going to give a squeeze of some, this is Italian herb paste, but this is fresh. And this is just going to give a little bit more fresh aromatic flavor to my broth. I'm going to put about a teaspoon of that in. There we go. And I'm going to give this a good stir. And you can see all of my sausage is essentially no longer pink. So it's cooked up well.
No, that's a silicone spoon. It's not going to cook.
Yes, these are all of my things. I don't use actual like hard plastic. I use silicone, which is food grade, I think up to 550 degrees temperature wise. But when you're using like a enamel coated or cast iron or a non-stick pan, you can't use metal. You'll scratch it, which then can cause damage your pan, and if you're using a Teflon pan, can cause harmful chemicals to get into it. So I use silicone. I think I got this from Williams and Sonoma because it works great and it protects my pan as well from damage. So it is not like a hard plastic. I'm gonna give this a good stir. There we go. We're gonna let it saute up there nicely. And now I'm gonna start chopping up my tomatoes. I'm using 4 vine ripe tomatoes. You could also use like a can of diced tomatoes if you wanted to. But I love fresh tomatoes. They'll add a nice tomato broth to, or juice to it as well. And you'll get it with the can, but this gives you just a bit more. And I always like to use fresh produce whenever I possibly can. There we go. And so I'm just gonna kind of do a kind of a bigger dice on these, kind of a chop. They'll actually reduce down a lot when we cook them because, of course, the orange, or not the orange juice, the tomato juice will come out, but they'll shrink as well. Cut through and chop these up. And then I'm going to just take a quick peek over at my yeast and see how it's foaming. You see, this is what I always set it. It's frothing up nicely, which means we'll be ready to turn into our dough in just a second. I always check because if you have poured your yeast in and the sugar and you have let it sit for about 5 minutes and you have no action, like there's no frothing or foaming, your yeast is dead. And that means that your bread will not rise. So if that happens, you're just gonna have to throw it out and buy new yeast. That's why it's really important that once you open your yeast, you put it in the fridge. That will keep it alive and living. And then also, if yeast gets too old, like say you bought it and you made bread 2 years ago, it might not still be alive. So if that happens, you just have to go out and buy new ones. It's pretty much dead and worthless. There we go. Give ourselves a good stir over here. Nice. And now we're going to add in the rest of our little vegetables here. We've got our tomatoes and our mushrooms and our zucchini. I may have taken a slightly too small of a pot, but that's okay. A lot of this will reduce down into a nice broth. And we're going to give it a nice stir. And kind of coat it, and we're going to let all of the, we're going to let it saute for just a little bit before we add some broth to it so that it can kind of reduce down a little. There. But it's going to be a nice, lovely vegetable soup, and then we'll throw in about a cup or so of tortellini at the very end. give it a stir. And the good thing is when you're stirring, just make sure you get everything off the very bottom of it. If you leave any there, it could burn, and then that could give you an off flavor in your soup. We're gonna let this sit for just a minute or two, and then we'll add some broth. But while we're doing that, we're gonna work on our dough right here. We are going to add, I've got 4 tablespoons of melted butter. We're just gonna, it doesn't have to be completely melted, soft and buttered works well, because our little dough hook will smush everything together. And then, we've got that. We need bread flour, which has a bit more gluten added into it than regular all-purpose flour, and we're gonna be using 3 cups. And this is going to make the dough for our cinnamon swirl bread.
What kind of dough?
It's gonna be just a basic, like kind of a white bread dough, and it's gonna be used for our cinnamon swirl bread later. I'm gonna put in about a pinch, 2 pinches, about a half a teaspoon of salt. And then we're gonna add in 3 cups of bread flour. And you need to use bread flour if you want to have a nice stretchy elasticity to your bread dough. Bread flour, if you didn't know, has gluten added to it, so it has more gluten content than a regular all-purpose flour, which allows it to rise better and gives it a little bit more elasticity and chewiness to it. So I'm gonna put mine up. We're gonna let it knead on my dough. So I'm gonna let that knead right there, and now I'm gonna pour over, I have 4 cups, but I might not use it all. I'm gonna pour over just enough broth to cover my vegetables. This is water, and then I'm gonna add a big heaping scoop of chicken bouillon. So,
you got asked if there's any sourdough discard going to be in that bread?
No, I'm not using sourdough discard for that. I haven't done cinnamon swirl bread with sourdough discard yet, but I might have to try and venture out and find a nice recipe that might work with it. Just a little bit more. Beautiful. So that was about 3 cups of water, and that will allow the vegetables, the zucchini, and the mushrooms and the tomatoes will reduce down some more, and add a little bit more broth to that. And now we're going to add a heaping spoonful of chicken bouillon. So we're moving up nice over there. There we go. I'm going to stir this in. Now I'm going to turn it.
You got asked, do you have any video on making sourdough bread?
Yeah, so I think on our page we have a couple of videos on there making on sourdough. I have one actually in my fridge bulk proofing right now. We made it last night. We made the dough, and then we did the stretch. But it is, let me do this. I'm going to do a quick thing. We'll need it more, but here, if, the trick is, so I have it in a plastic bag, but I'll unopen it, but you have to do like a 24-hour bulk kind of proof in the fridge, and then when you pop it in the oven, right when you take it out. So it's in my Banneton, and it is sitting in here, and we'll flip it out, and the bottom side will be the nice side that we score and cut in our Dutch oven to bake. But it sits in my fridge for about 24 hours. So sourdough, if you've never made it before, it takes a hot minute to make. It's not something like, I'm gonna make sourdough bread and I'm gonna have it for dinner tonight. That's not the reality. If you don't have an active starter already, then you're gonna have to wait a minimum of 7 days before you can start making the dough, and then it's about a day and a half later before you can eat your bread. But I do have lots of videos. They're on the link on my page. You can get to them, but they're posted there, how to make your starter and then how to make the bread. Really good. So here is our dough for our cinnamon swirl bread. And this is a yeast-based dough, which means I'm gonna have it rise in my oven here. I have a bread proofing setting on it, which allows me to keep it at nice 95 degrees. If you don't have a bread proofing setting on your oven, just find a nice sunny spot in your house where you could just pop it with a towel over it. Or I used to always put it on top of my dryer, and then I'd run like a load of like laundry, and that would help it nice rise up. So I'm making it into a nice ball, and then before I put it down, give a little swirl of olive oil or whatever oil you want to use. And then what I do is I just roll my dough in here all the way around so it's coated. And then I will I use like press and peel or saran wrap over the top. It really seals in the moisture, but you can use like a towel if you want. And then I pop it in my oven. The oil helps the dough not cling to the side of your bowl, which won't, like, if it clings and stucks, it prevents it from rising. So I'm gonna put my bread proofing, which keeps it at a nice 95 degrees. There we go. Hey, buddy, you wanna help me cook some? Yeah, okay. You need help bringing over your little stool? No, you're gonna get it yourself? Okay, you gotta push that on. Wow, my Chef Teddy's gonna help us. Let me give this a quick stir over here. It's starting to warm up. You can see it's starting to get a little foamy at the top. And then we're gonna work on our kind of club style grilled cheese. Since you're gonna help me, buddy, let me move this out of the way so we have some nice room for us to work together. Thank you, Chef Teddy. He's bringing over his kitchen helper. If you have kids and you haven't invested in one of these, do. He loves to help me. You gonna be my chef today, buddy? Chef Teddy?
No, what that?
Yeah.
What that?
Yes. Okay, so we are going to make essentially a club-style grilled cheese, except we're not going to have bacon. We actually used our bacon yesterday on our bacon Gouda grilled cheeses. So today, we are going to use ham and turkey and Kobe Jack cheese and...
Sorry, like
Yeah, you like grilled cheese. And then cheddar cheese. We're going to make, look at this, one huge one, because this is a very big sandwich.
Yeah.
So, normally I use my own sourdough bread, but we ran out of it, and I'm going to be baking up a loaf tonight. You're going to help me spread it?
Yeah.
On one side of each slice of your bread, spread some butter. And this is just a store-bought sourdough bread, but I think sourdough makes the best grilled cheese. So just on one side, I'll pop that one down. And then we got a little one. You help me spread it? Thank you, Chef Teddy.
Like this.
You're doing it for me. And then I spread it on this, and this is going to be the top one. Yeah, there you go. You keep spreading it. We're going to be using cheddar, Kobe Jack, just a mesquite turkey breast, and some ham slices. And we're going to start by, we're going to do cheddar on the bottom layer.
Mama.
Oh, thank you. You did it all. Excellent. Good job.
Look.
You're going to help me. Okay, I've got 2 slices here, bud. Can I slide you over? You ready? Hold on, Mama. Chugga, 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 choo, choo. I haven't turned on my skillet yet, guys. We do that once we've got it completely built. Can you? Here, you want to do it right here? You put your cheese, you're going to lay down your cheese on it. You want to make a nice layer on both. Yeah, good job. We're covering it. Make sure you don't have any sticking over the edge because that will just melt down and burn on your pan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're going to add some turkey.
Tree.
Yeah. Gobble, 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 gobble. You know what letter turkey starts with?
T.
T, that's right. Very good, Teddy. Turkey starts with T. And we're going to do just a thin layer of mesquite turkey. You want to help me lay it out? Put one on. Put it over there. Lay it out nice and thin. You don't want to have too thick of layers of meat on here, or your grilled cheese will be cold in the middle. Yeah, the turkey is cold, you're right. And then we're gonna be using some ham.
Yeah, what?
I know, we have 2 slices of ham.
Yeah,
First, before we use them, I am not a huge fan of that hard, like chewy strip of your ham. So what I'm just going to do is do a quick cut it off. If you buy, sometimes the ham you get from the store already has it off. But if you don't, you can slice it off real quick and it just makes for a nicer thing. You wanna put them down? Then we're gonna put our ham down. And if you were doing a traditional club, I'm gonna give this a good stir. That's right. You would put some bacon down. And now our top layer, we're gonna use Kobe Jack. Kobe Jack. And we're gonna give it, pull it apart. And we need 2 slices, Teddy. Okay, you're gonna put that one on. You're gonna put that one on. Yep. Just on there. Perfect. We got our 2 slices.
Yellow, white.
That's right. It's yellow and white.
White.
Kobe Jack's is a mix of 2 cheeses, but honestly, I couldn't tell you which 2 cheeses they are. Probably like a mild cheddar and like a provolone or something like that. And then we're gonna put our cheese or our buttered sourdough on top. I've got my skillet on to about a 7 right now, and we'll toast it up and we'll flip it. And now we're gonna come back over here and we're gonna do the last little prep to our minestrone. But you wanna come to this side, bud?
Yeah.
Now, give you a good hold. Chugga, 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 chugga. Chugga, 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 chugga. Okay, thank you. We need to taste our broth real quick. Make sure it has a nice flavor to it. This is the time that you want to add any more seasonings. We had used dried Italian seasoning as well as wet Italian seasoning, and then chicken bouillon for the flavor. So now we just want to see if there's any more needed. I think it's perfect the way it is. So we are going to chop up some fresh parsley and we're going to put in some tortellini. I'm going to use just some basic cheese tortellini. You want that one? You could use any one you want. You don't need too much. They're actually going to puff up and get a little bit bigger in here. So I'm going to probably put in.
So Colby Jack's just Colby and Monterey Jack.
Monterey Jack. There we go. I have no idea. I just know that.
Makes sense, Colby Jack.
Colby does totally make sense. I wasn't really thinking that through. There you go. You got it in? Drop it in. Here we go. So I put about a cup of tortellini in this soup. And it's actually, they'll absorb up and get a little bit bigger, but you have so many vegetables and sausage in here. It's not overload, but if you wanted to add more, you could. But I just like it to where you have a couple of good pieces per bowl. Yeah. Yes, and now we're gonna we're gonna chop up some parsley and a little bit of spinach. So it's gonna bubble there. We're gonna do about a handful of spinach. Yes, we're gonna chop it up first, and then you can help me put it in. And then Italian parsley. So first, let's chop it up. You could throw it in whole leaf, but I find chopping it up allows it to kind of spread out a little bit more. There we go. Give it a nice cut all the way through. And this is using baby spinach. If you use like full leaf spinach, that is definitely, you're gonna wanna chop that up because those leaves are huge and a bit more chewy, and so you might wanna get rid of those stalks on some of those. Here we go. So we've kind of got a nice chop on our spinach. Okay, I'm gonna slide you over. You're gonna put 1 handful in, I'll put 1 handful in. Just put it right on top there, bud. Good job. Thank you, Chef Teddy. And then the thing with spinach is you always want to add it towards the end because it wilts really fast and cooks up. And if you want it to keep that nice vibrant green color, add it towards the very end of your soup. If you put it at the beginning, it will turn just kind of a mushy brown. Yep, you love soup too. I know you do. There we go. And then we're gonna chop up some parsley. Parsley will just add a nice, lovely flavor to it. Yeah, we're gonna chop it up nice and fine first. And parsley can have kind of a bit of a tougher stalk on it, especially if you don't just pick for the leaves. So make sure you do a really nice mince on it. So I'm just gonna hold my hand over the top and I'm gonna push up and down and chopping it into a nice line, and then I'm gonna put it, and then I'm gonna go the opposite direction. There we go. Is that right? Beautiful. Got it nice. And so this will add just a nice, really fresh flavor to our tortellini soup, and kind of goes along really well with the Italian flavors. I'm gonna turn our soup down just a little bit, buddy. And then let's look at our grilled cheese over here, okay? I love, for flipping my grilled cheese, I use a fish spatula. I know it's kind of weird. Okay, we've got our first flip on it. I'm gonna be toasting it again, so don't worry that it's not a nice crispy brown yet. I do 2 flips, so on each side, so that the first side really heats up and helps the middle ingredients melt, and then the second flip is for getting that nice, crispy, delicious, crunchy crust. Okay, buddy, are you ready to put our parsley in?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna scoot you a little closer so you don't have to reach so far. And you're gonna put it all in there for me? Thank you. It's always nice to have a sous chef here to help me. We've got a little bit more. And start in. You could always save it and put it on your bowl at the very end. I like it to sit in the soup just a little bit so that it can bring out more of those aromatic flavors in it. Yeah. Did you get all green? There we go. Mama will help get the rest of it. There we go.
My kid.
Thank you. You're such a helper.
Mom,
And now, so you can see our tortellini has risen to the top of the soup. That means they are fully cooked through. So I'm gonna turn my soup off, and we are gonna make a train ride to the other side, and we're gonna work on our grilled cheese. Chugga, chugga, choo, choo, chugga, chugga, choo, choo. Think we're ready for our flip? You good, bud?
Yeah.
And now we're gonna be doing, we got a little escape artist right here. Put him back in there. Yeah, is that for our bread? Now we're gonna crisp it up. I'm gonna get, you keep an eye on it for me, Teddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a plate out. Oop, need a big plate down here for our sandwich. I know that was for our bread. That's a bread tag.
Bread tag?
Yes, it tells you when your bread was baked. For those of you who don't know, the colors of the tags on when you buy bread tell you when your bread has been baked. I don't actually know what color relates to each day, but it tells you, yeah, some's in blue, but it tells you which day they've been baked and how fresh they are. Perfect. We're getting a nice golden crust on there. That's right. And we need to get a ladle out, buddy. We have a blue one. So I'm going to scoot you over because my ladle's right here, bud.
A red one? A red?
It does. Sometimes we have a red one on it. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Our soup is done, so we're going to ladle it into... That's right. We're going to ladle it into our bowl. That's right. So we've got our nice, lovely vegetables. And there's some sausage in there, and we have tortellini and Italian seasoning. So we've got our lovely soup. Let me put one more tortellini on there. Look at that, it's nice and steamy. And we have our grilled cheese is nice and ready. I know it's steaming. And I'm gonna get a nice, you smell it? Do you smell the lovely smell? And here is our turkey, ham, cheddar, and Kobe Jack thing. So essentially a club sandwich. And we have, you see the melted cheese in there. We got our ham and our turkey. Yeah, you guys ready to dip it in? Mmm. Mm-hmm. Delicious. Well, thank you guys for joining us here today. We try to do live cooking every day, kind of show you what we're cooking for our family and what we eat. Today we made our kind of club-style grilled cheese with a tortellini Italian soup. And then we also made the dough for our cinnamon swirl bread, which we have proofing, and we'll finish that off tonight. Thanks for being here with us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We have links to our recipes on our page. Thanks again.